I was running a small shop. We had trouble being able to keep track of everything. QuickBooks, Google Calendar, PayPal, email, whiteboards, nothing talked to each other. It was complicated. I wanted to be able to have an easy to use system to be able to keep track of their orders from quote all the way to shipping and pickup. That's what Printavo does. It's cloud-based. You can add your whole team to it and you can give it a free trial. So click the link down below. You can actually sign up, go through a demo, and see if it'll work for your shop. Hey, Print Hustlers, welcome back to another episode of Printavo, Print Hustlers Podcast. I'm your host, Bruce from Printavo. I got Mr. Stephen Farrig. Mr. Stephen Farrig out of Campus Inc. And we got an awesome episode coming up. We got Mr. Jeffrey Paul, part 2. We had to extend it. He's back. Really cool 4 takeaways. He went on a riff. Some really good tactical stuff too, I might add, to take away. First equipment, pricing, people, when your business changes, when to evolve based on revenue, all really, really good stuff.
I don't think there were more knowledge bombs than we've had in that hour. It was knowledge bomb central.
Jeffrey Paul is knowledge bomb central. NBC. What? No, KBC. I need to know how to spell. All right, let's kick it off. You want to go ahead? Graphic Source, sure. Mr. Graphic Source.
Graphic Source. Do you need a solution to improve efficiency and reduce cost in your art department? Graphic Source offers industry-leading outsource options for your shop by truly becoming part of your team. They plug and play with Printavo and other shop management softwares when it comes to SEPs, mockups, creative art, order management, embroidery, digitizing, back office admin, or even customer service. There's no better company in our industry to work with. With over 30 years in the game, they really know and understand shop needs and have a proven track record of success. Hit them up at graphicsource.com for art staffing needs and mention Printavo Pod for 50% off your first vector, separation, or embroidery order.
Graphic Source is taking over. They're doing some awesome stuff. Supercolor. You're a big Supercolor user.
Big Super user. So we started using Supercolor. I met Rum at a Print Hustlers, the one with Profit First, and he handed me a little baggie and was like, go try this out. And then COVID came around, and I tried it out, and we used it on all our masks, and that's why we fell in love with Supercolor. Supercolor is the world's best heat transfer. It's made by screen printers for screen printers. Supercolor understands firsthand the pressure and expectations of the screen printing business. That's why they pride themselves on being super fast and super easy. And I will say they are the Amazon of our industry when it comes to customer service, when it comes to shipping. They do what they say, they finish what they start, and they're an amazing company to work with. Experience them for yourself using promo code Printavo15 and get 15% off your order. Thanks, Supercolor.
Nice. Easy Way. I know you've seen Easy Way at the trade shows. Make sure to check them out. They've got some really nice environmentally conscious chemicals that will get the job done faster for you and your shop. I know Campus Inc.'s a big customer as well. A lot more efficiently and will cost you a fraction of the cost per screen to use them. Give them a go. They're an awesome team to work with and will absolutely be able to help you out.
Bruce, have you heard of multicraft_daddy?
Who's that?
Well, if you need art supplies or a daddy, hit up Dave Eggers and the team at Multicraft. Multicraft actually just launched I believe what was a new Shopify, I think a really nice e-commerce platform to be able to order ink. And so we'll have to drop the link in there below. Mention the Printavo podcast and receive an extra 10% off your order. Let's get to the show, Bruce.
All right, let's jump on in.
Anyway, guys, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, 100%. No, thanks for re-coming back.
Part 2.
Yeah.
Bruce, good haircut.
Thank you. I don't have the facial hair like you, or your previous.
Printavo or Shirt Show put together our faces to make a podcast thing, and I'd just like to say my hairline is much stronger than Bruce's.
I saw that.
And I got some good comments that, so that's all right, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting lighter, like on the sides here. I'm just hoping it doesn't like curl all the way back. You know, like it starts to go like this And then you might as well just shave the center, and then, then it's all the way downhill from there.
They can fix that these days, Bruce. And I tell you,
That's true. You're right.
I spend a lot of time in Asia, and it's incredible how often I meet people on planes who are going there for like a medical tourism.
Yeah.
Right. They're going over there and they're getting some hair plugs done, or maybe they're getting some, that cool sculpting stuff now. And they'll go over there and they'll book all these procedures over a 2-week period in some place like Bangkok at fabulous hospitals.
Yeah.
And stuff that might cost you $4,000 or $5,000 here in the States, you can do there first class for $2,000. Not that you need it. You look amazing, but I'm just,
I'm totally off the side. Yes, I've actually seen that too. We had a layover in Turkey once, and it was the same thing. Tons of people coming in with like their head wrapped, and then with like dots and lines all over. You can see underneath the bandage.
Istanbul is the number. Istanbul, and I think Mumbai maybe is number 2. And Mexico City is pretty high up there for male hair procedures.
Yeah.
Right. It's either something with that culture, or just they've got good medical systems there. So that doesn't surprise me.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. My wife always makes fun of me for retaining how much just absolutely useless knowledge I can retain. But then things that are, to her credit, valid that I should remember, I can't remember.
That you need to remember.
Yeah, that's fair.
Welcome back. Yeah, this is fun. We had a great talk last time and wanted to keep it going.
Yeah, I think, first, I know Fort Worth's coming up. Hope to see everybody there. That's actually going to be in September 30th. So plan your tickets, because airplane tickets are insane right now. Alert, alert. They're like 2x more for everything to go anywhere.
It really is. And go ahead and book it now, because one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is all the airlines got rid of their change fees, right? So
True.
There's no reason not to book it now. And if you end up not being able to go,
you get the credits or whatever.
I will say it's really hard to redeem credits sometimes. I'll be like, wait, do I have any credits? Can I use them on this one? They're like, you can't use until 2022 or something, 2023. I don't know if you have this issue.
Yeah.
Maybe
not all of them linked to your account, I found.
Yeah,
American's gotten better. Southwest is definitely the best with it. But yeah, not. And then international is just a total shit show on it. So
it is. There's a whiteboard next to my office
of all the
here
ticket numbers with refunds.
I'm keeping track of unused tickets, especially talk about the overseas stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Because they don't make it easy. I'm embarrassed to say that on more than one occasion I have purchased flights for the wrong date. Right. I'll get somewhere like Dubai, or get somewhere like Doha or Istanbul, and I'm going up there to check in for my ticket. And they're like, "Sir, I can't find you." I'm like, "It's right here." Like, "Sir, this is for tomorrow."
Jeffrey,
yeah.
I'm going to introduce you to Belay Solutions, your virtual assistant that will...
It's the damn dateline, right? It's like I'm leaving today, and I'm thinking, oh, it's a 14-hour flight. That means I'm going to get there. Oh, no, I need to add
Jeffrey,
24 hours.
Wow. This is intervention. I'm going to introduce you to your new virtual assistant. The problem is you're just doing a lot of things like everybody. But anyway.
It is. Well, I'm fortunate.
We could do a whole podcast on missed.
Well, Bruce, look, I think we made our last talk. We kind of covered a whole kind of wide ranging list of topics, and maybe I went off on some.
No, there was a lot of good stuff. Honestly, where I remember us leaving off is diving into, you help a lot of folks on the Facebook groups, and we were talking about some of the top things that you felt. You could be as blunt as possible, honestly, like what you think people miss. Like,
yeah.
You write some really handcrafted responses that I've gone through. I'm like, damn, this is
almost like
deep. But
I imagine your responses are like you sitting down at a grand piano, like
with like a feather pen, yeah, dipping it in the ink.
In my defense, let me say there's a lot of times where my expansive Facebook replies might be taking place during a 9-hour layover in an airport, or a 16-hour flight to Singapore, where I have Wi-Fi and I've pretty much watched every available downloadable movie, and so I don't know. I'll just type too much on Facebook, I guess. With Facebook, man, that's
it's hard.
That's a unique place, right? And I cannot imagine owning a business. When we had our screen print shop, it was early 2000s. I cannot imagine trying to do what both of you guys do in today's social media environment. And just a lot of the just poisonous is probably a bit too strong of a word, but maybe not in some cases, that the vitriol that is so easily communicated through social media about either companies or people personally that we didn't have to deal with 20 years ago, right? If I pissed off a customer or I fired a customer because, they wanted their 7th art revision on a family reunion Times New Roman font, and I just said, you know what, guys, maybe we're not the company for you. I didn't have to worry about them going out on Yelp and Facebook and all these local community. The worst thing I had to worry about was them calling the Better Business Bureau. And so I don't envy you guys having to do that, and the thick skin that you obviously have to deal with a lot of the things that you're dealing with. And I know both of you personally have dealt with some of this pretty heavily over the last month. And I can speak for myself, but I can also speak for everybody that I know in the vast majority of this industry that the vocal minority is just that.
Sure,
it's the minority, and I'm sorry you guys have to do with it. And man, I thank you for everybody else that appreciates what you do, and just being able to push past a lot of that.
Bruce has thicker, more patient skin than me.
He and Ryan Moore are just they're just good people, and they just kind of I'm just here to help, man. But then some of the stuff that comes at them, I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, you're dumb. I go right for it. I'm just like, yeah, that's stupid.
I mean, I think for the most part, yeah, you're right. The more critical people are definitely a lot louder and more vocal, but I don't know. If you haven't done anything great though, or starting or trying to do, you're not going to get people talking about it. And honestly, I think in all of our positions, any business owner, you're always looking at the most negative stuff anyway. It's like if you're cruising through your Yelp page, you're not looking at the 5-star reviews. You're like, okay, 5, 5, 5, 5, 1 star. What? Hold on. You click them more and you start reading it and you're like, who's this person's name? And you go back up again. It's like looking at a restaurant. When do you look at the good reviews on a restaurant review when you want to go see where you want to eat?
You're right. You kind of flip past.
You look at most recent and 1 stars. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get spooked. And that's the same thing I have on Amazon when I'm looking some silly product. But what do you think? What do you think are? Let's go through top 3 things that you feel when you see shops on Facebook groups that you can help, or maybe people are missing, or what they should be doing better. What are
the blinders that they might have on?
I've kind of got a little note list over here, and whether these are hard hitting or not, that's for each shop and each opinion. But these are the ones topics that I typically see come up a lot. And it's just what I see people going off on these diatribes, and where I see these keyboard cowboys, or these people with their keyboard courage come out of the woodworks mostly. And so obviously equipment. So let's talk about equipment here in just a minute. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about software that you use to run your business. Let's talk about managing supply chains, and let's talk about pricing.
Ooh, 4. Right now, okay.
So there's been a lot of talks about employees, HR. I mean, that everybody knows that's tough, right? So that kind of is what it is. So let's talk about those 4 things. Let's talk about the first thing that comes up absolutely more than anything is equipment.
All right.
Right. You can just, I don't know what the percentage are, but it seems like at least every other post or every third post.
It's like, which press?
Somebody popping in there says, I bought a new press. What do you think about it? Oh, it's a piece of shit. Throw it away. Or what do you think the best automatic press is?
Yeah, I saw one the other day and I was like, well, back in 92, the one I bought was a can of bolts. And
what I try to do is when I see that, I try to put myself in their situation and just be like, okay, this person they're so pumped about this press they bought at a garage sale. They're so pumped about their Speedball ink, and they're so pumped about this. And yeah, we just sometimes obliterate them.
Yeah, and it's too bad, at the end of the day, I think we talked about this in our last episode. The barriers to entry in this industry are so small that guy buying $1,000 press used and maybe getting a little Rio ink mixing sample set from one of the suppliers, he can, for most of all intents and purposes, can make as good of a T-shirt as somebody with a $200,000 automatic setup. He won't be able to make as many of them, but the quality of what he can make is up there with anything. So when it comes to equipment, and I'm going to get relatively specific here, and if my phone starts blowing up, that means I know that this podcast is probably published, but it is what it is.
Chris, you better clip this one.
Hot takes.
Yeah, you've got the players in this industry, obviously M&R, Rock, MHM, Brown, Anatole, Workhorse, Toss to a lesser extent. Now, all make a press that will work, that will hold registration, that can make you some money, and at the end of the day will help you run your business. Now, there's differences between every single one of those brands. And in some cases, those differences are enough to warrant that brand. In some cases, in most cases, they're just some perceived difference that the people who have bought that press browbeat because it helps them justify the purchase that they made. Right? How often do you see somebody, you find me the guy who comes up and said, I bought this and that was a mistake. That's the guy I want to listen to, right? Why was it a mistake? Because so too often it's like we need, it's almost like this confirmation bias. We hear that term a lot in the political spectrum, but confirmation bias is where you surround yourself with like-minded people that support your opinion, whether it's right or wrong. We find that with the screen printing presses. So look, if I was going in and I was going to be buying, if I was starting my shop and I had $30,000 to $70,000 to buy a press, I'd buy an M&R Diamondback E or I'd buy an M&R Sport. That's what I would buy. Now, there's a lot of reasons I feel that way, and there's other presses that would do just as well for you. Fine, that's what I would buy. M&R's pallet systems are upgradable all the way, or the same pallet system from that Diamondback, all the way through their $300,000 strike over. There's value to that. You've got a distributor network and a rep network that can support you on that new press, right? This is your first press. You're gonna have a million questions. You're gonna need somebody relatively close to you that can come in and maybe show you what off contact is. M&R can provide that. If I'm moving up in kind of the mid-tier, me personally, I'm looking at an M&R Cobra or a Rock Next, okay? It's my opinion. A lot of people have different ones. It is what it is. If I'm going up anything above that, I'm most likely looking at a Rock Oval, right? Rock makes the absolute best oval in the world, and there'll be 90% of people out there that disagree with me. Whatever, that's my opinion. Mainly because of the registration tolerances. They've been making the same drive system for 20 years. They've got it dialed in. So if we're wanting to start our business, Rock has a U, MHM has some X and S types. My challenge with MHM is once you get past the X and S type, you go up to their Sync 5000. It's a different system, right? That registration system on the 5000 is not the same registration on the X and S type. So I'm going to have two different things going on here. With the Rock and the M&R, I'm going to have the same registration system from the $40,000 press to my $200,000 press. All three of those brands will work great with the CTS. CTS is a must. It needs to be your next purchase after an automatic. And then a third purchase is a coder. People can message me, and I'll be glad to make more blunt recommendations. But you really can't go wrong with any of those three brands. Now, what I've really been preaching to a lot of shops that I talk to, who I kind of just get pinged on this, is we talked a little bit about this before, hybrids. Okay? Hybrids are coming. They are getting that stuff figured out. The ink companies are really made a commitment to it. Magna, Matsui, Aviant, they all have, the tie coats and the binders and the hybrid underbases. So we're getting investments from our consumable supplier to support this technology. And what Rock and both M&R are doing with their hybrids is fabulous.
Have you thought about that, Farag? Hybrid, or is it more of heat transfer, you think, is the...
I was just talking to Jeffrey about this week. We need to, equipment's going to come last in all of this. Like, there's too much signal and there's too much noise, and we need to figure out everything first, and the equipment will be the last piece of the pie. Meaning we will, contract out with a shop that's fabulous at digital for a while until we feel like it's the best, most responsible move to bring it in-house. Do I think we might get there? Probably, but it might not be my shop. I don't know. That's not going to make or break Campus Ink selling digital prints.
The hybrid, and also let's remember the hybrid, you still have screens, okay? And what what the manufacturers do at a trade show with a hybrid, like a lot of other things they do at trade shows, is not necessarily transferable to real world production. You see them running 3 screens in this full color artwork. What you didn't see is them spending 4 weeks leading up to that trade show to get all the screens just perfect, all the separations just perfect, and boom, they can make this print. Whereas if you needed to get it set up in a production environment, you might have needed 5 screens, right? So there's still a minimum where hybrid makes sense, right? I don't know what that is off the top of my head. Maybe it's 144, it's 216, it's some sort of combination between number of colors, number of pieces. But that technology is doing really well. And here's the kicker. There are 2 companies in our industry here in the States. There's some in Asia, but primarily the 2 in the United States that are making a hybrid system and an analog system is M&R and Rock. Okay. So what does that mean? That means if you buy an M&R or a Rock and you eventually want to upgrade to a hybrid, you're going to be working with the same company. They are supporting, M&R has a digital squeegee. It technically comes from Asia. It was developed in Asia, but it's their kind of personalized model that they've customized for the North American market. And when there's a problem, you call M&R, and M&R is not going to be doing this, right? Same way with Rock. It's their hybrid solution. They don't have another manufacturer to blame, okay? All too often, when you start buying an analog system from one company and a digital system from another, even if it's some sort of partnership, inevitably when there's a problem, the digital company is going to blame the analog company, and the analog company is going to blame the digital company. I don't want that. I'm willing to pay to not have them be able to blame somebody else, right? If it's messing up, you need to fix it. Right now, M&R and Rock are the ones doing it.
Jeffrey, what about I give Justin Lawrence at Oklahoma Shirt Company a lot of credit, who's been Workhorse through and through. What about the Anatols and Workhorses that aren't going to be the highest echelon, but they're going to be like good, solid presses? And what's your take on them? Is that because they're kind of like the second tier, say it what it is.
Yeah.
But the barrier to entry is also lower price point, all that stuff. Like, what is your take on those kind of second tier groups?
Both of those companies, I believe, at least it was back when I was a little closer to this industry on that side, I believe that both of those systems have a lot of the same accessories as M&R, right? Like a Workhorse pallet will work on an M&R pallet, or pallet on them, and vice versa. Squeegees are interchangeable. So, if you're seeing yourself now wanting to eventually upgrade into that M&R sphere, both Workhorse and Anatol are great. Anatol has carved out a really nice niche with their Volt, right? If you don't want to worry about compressors, if you've got some sort of deed restrictions, if you're working out of your home and you can't have that piston compressor sitting outside keeping your neighbor up, that Anatol fits through a regular sized doorway. I mean, it's fabulous. Here's the thing: if you can learn how to print good quality work on an Anatol or a Workhorse, moving up into the MHMs, Rocks, and M&Rs of the world is going to be a cakewalk, right? But just because of the way the squeegees clamp in, the way that off contacts are set up, when you solve those on an Anatol or a Workhorse, man, everything else is going to be gravy. There is absolutely nothing wrong with either one of those brands. They will absolutely print you a good quality T-shirt. They will make you money. One thing I do talk to a lot of brand new shops when they're first purchasing their equipment, especially if they're really new being they haven't been around for 5 to 10 years printing on a manual. It's a new business. We don't really know if this business is going to be successful yet, do we? Right? So how do I mitigate that risk? And how do I reduce my
just keeping the cost down?
The used market for an M&R, Diamondback, and Sportsman is by far and away a better used market than any other brand out there. You buy a Sportsman for $50,000. 2 years later, you'll be able to sell that thing for $35,000 to $40,000 in a week. Dave McClain, one of those guys, will move it in 24 hours.
Dave McClain.
What other?
The infamous film. I've been trying to get him on, but
it's him and his son.
Yeah,
it's not just Dave.
He's a little shy.
Yeah.
Hey, give him a shout out, Jeff. When tell him to come on.
Dave, if you're listening to this, we want you.
Dave, we appreciate you. We appreciate your mysteriousness. But we want to tell your story.
That industry,
all right,
you got all the riggers and all the people that can come in and help you disassemble and get it shipped. That's the secret sauce to that business. Anybody can list a press for sale and take a 10% brokerage fee, but can that broker execute? Dave McClain can execute. UCC filings, right? Don't forget, if you sell a piece of equipment even if you've paid off the note, it doesn't mean the people you paid off from have released the UCC files. I see it all too often. And then you go to sell that used piece of equipment. Beacon comes in and says, here's your funded wait. You've got a UCC lien against that. You're like, I paid that damn thing off. What the hell? Now you got to get a hold of whoever you did the original note through to get them paperwork to release the lien.
Whoa.
So that you can sell that piece of equipment. I see that happen a lot. People forgetting those steps. So Anatole and Workhorse, God, nothing wrong with them. We see in this industry, and I did this when I sold equipment. Obviously, it's my job to sell equipment. We focus in on things that our equipment does really well, and we try to gloss over maybe some stuff that it doesn't do so well. With the CTS systems that are out there now, whether it be ROC, MHM, M&R, you're going to be setting up 7 to 9 color jobs in less than 30 minutes. Ink, squeegees, flood bars, registered, first off, guaranteed. If you come in and put some proper processes in place with the CTS, that's going to end up being your average, somewhere around there. Now, can one shave off 2 or 3 minutes? Yeah, maybe. But what I'm always telling people is we focus on these registration things. We focus on this thing indexing at 900 an hour. But yet, we've got 2 people spending the equivalent of 16 hours a day checking in freight. Right? I mean, the UPS truck shows up, and because of the way I ordered from Broder, Sandmar, and Staten, I'm paying 2 people $30 an hour to check in freight. In most of these jobs, saving 2 or 3 minutes on the setup, it's irrelevant to the amount of time I could save by putting in proper receiving systems, right? And staging systems and labeling systems, and where is that box? But equipment's fun to talk about. People feel like they can understand it a little bit, but when you get into like SOPs for shipping and receiving and POs, that's a world that most people don't understand, so nobody wants to talk about it. So we don't consider that we've got way more waste most of the time before the press and after the press than we actually do on the press. And that's where I encourage people to try and spend time, but it's not easy. You're talking more about operational type stuff.
It sounds like there's a big caveat, especially when you post that, just making sure that, everybody has their own perspective as well. We just recently had Anchored Prints owner Sam on, who actually has both, and I'm sure you watched the videos, and he's got his opinions and
Is that the one where they had the speed contest?
Yeah, they did both of them side by side.
He's doing a lot of different characteristics back and forth. I mean, he basically said speed wise and everything is the same. His issue was more of a maintenance problem on M&R versus ROC, and so that was where he in service, as you point. But he said overall speed is just like it didn't matter. It was negligible.
I'll tell you what, I'll give ROC credit for that warranty. It's pretty powerful. Right? 3 years, I think, or 2 years, whatever it is now. And that includes parts and service and tech time.
Right.
If they've got to come to you. I mean, you got a lot of manufacturers out there where if something goes wrong on the 10th month, they'll replace the part for free, but you got to pay for the tech to fly in. And that's always been a little bit of a challenge for me to kind of accept. But it is what it is.
You had equipment. I should have written because you had 4. Yeah, what was
next?
2?
What was next?
Yeah. So let's talk about software.
Yeah, software.
That's the other topic.
Let's talk about it.
Oh my God, all the time. What software are you using to run?
You got me sweaty.
No, you'll be fine. So, 10 years ago, I mean, Printavo didn't exist. You really had, what was called T-Quoter,
T-Chimp, T-Cal, Shopworks, Impress.
You had Shopworks and Impress.
And Fast Manager and Price It, maybe.
Were those back then? So I put Shopworks and Impress are enterprise systems.
Yeah.
And all of the things that we hate about software are part of an enterprise system.
Mm-hmm.
My wife works for Nordstrom. She's a buyer. I think we mentioned this. $15 billion company. And a lot of their stuff is still keyed in manually. It's all about data entry. The old saying of garbage in, garbage out. Well, that's how an impression of software systems operate. You've got almost dedicated data input people because of the amount of stuff that they're tracking. But the market for a software company at that level is so incredibly small now in the United States that it's just not viable for somebody like a Printavo to try and come in and offer the amount of, double entry accounting systems and, royalty tracking and sales rep commissions tracking and production and APIs with suppliers. It's just too much. From what I understand, and I admittedly I'm not a Printavo expert, but I will say that for 90% of everybody out there, Printavo is exactly what you need, and that is the largest addressable market, right? So, I don't know what your development costs are. I know that typically development costs are really high. So when somebody comes to you and say, can we do this or can you do this? The answer is always yes. I can do that, but I've also got a business to run, and if it's going to cost me $500,000 to get that feature added to my software, and I'm really only gotten 10 or 20 shops asking for it, and I can't really charge for it. How do I monetize that development time? You can't. And so you try to hit.
I think there is a fair. So maybe 3-4 months ago, I just happened to open Instagram, and it was Lee Stewart, Danny Greninger, and Josh Merrill from Liquid Graphics on. I don't know how this came all to be, but it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was just like, wow, this is gonna be interesting. So I started listening. And Danny was pretty fired up that, why don't we have everything that shops have in, a CNC world, or, all the IoT stuff, which is basically allowing software to connect to hardware. And I mean, I was writing, I was like, I think you're spot on. I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's like a super clear path forward. Although Josh brought up the fair point is like, do you know what those softwares cost in the CNC world? Like, I mean, they're, millions of dollars plus all this implementation time, plus all this training, and there's just no market for it. No one would spend that kind of money. Now, I'm not making it. I think absolutely we can do it and be more affordable over time, right? Over a longer span of time. But yeah, it is interesting looking at software as terms of dollars invested to make the functionality, but because it actually is very, very expensive.
I think what's also interesting is, okay, when did the cloud come out? Like, when was the first?
You want to know a funny story with that? The second trade show I went to was DAX in Tinley Park, Illinois,
in like 2012.
This one's maybe 2016 maybe or something.
Okay.
And I had multiple people attend that I had to convince why the cloud was not bad. And I'm thinking to myself, and this is like Adobe didn't fully, I mean, they had Creative Cloud out and everything, but not to the full amount. But yeah, it was still very, very new.
But I think if you think about it, like, screen printers are not tech people who are engineers and super tech oriented. They're craftsmen, or, they're working with their hands, or this is a new career for them. Then you're adding this new thing called the cloud in, early 2010. Now you're adding software as a subscription, meaning like, wait, I have to pay for it every month. Why can't I just buy the CD? That's what my business partner would ask. Why can't we just pay it once? That's how I did it with Corel, right? And so
AOL.
There's an AOL 9.0. There's a mindset shift to understanding technology and software is developed completely different today than it was literally 7 or 8 years ago. Meaning like the apps that we use, and like to have a platform on a website was not very common. To be able to log into a website that then runs your company, most people are still using QuickBooks Desktop for that reason, right? So like software as a service and platform-based stuff we're literally in the first decade of it in history.
Yeah, we're in V1.
Right?
And that's why I think it's on the flip side, I'm pumped and excited to see what comes out from us. I hope it's us. If it's others, that'd be cool too. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, it is super early still.
I was talking to a customer that was like, complaining about something or something they didn't want. And I said, like, how much you're paying? A couple $100 a month. That's $2,000 a year for how loud you are. Like, they have to hire someone to answer every one of your complaints. And every time you complain, they have to stop what they're doing and answer you. And that takes time. Like, are you worth that? Like, are you worth that time? Like, at some point, it's usually the smallest ones that are the loudest, and those smallest ones are actually dragging down innovation because they're not letting the thinkers actually think, you know? I'm just defending you, Bruce, because I love you guys.
I appreciate it. Again, I don't want this to be, I mean, more so on Jeff's side, like, what do you think, software, like, where do you see it going over the next couple of years? What could be cool that's practical too?
You have a lot of options out there to run your business up to $3, $4, $5 million revenue. I think Printavo can get there. Some of these other ones can get you there. When you start getting up above that number, things start changing very quickly. And I've used this story a lot that if you're a hard worker and you can make a good product and you're honest, you can build a business up to about $1 million relatively easy. It's not hard. You can pretty much do that through family and friends and churches and schools. You can get there. To get up to that $1 to $3 million, you need to have a little bit of a niche. You need to have a little bit more of a business acumen, but you can relatively get there. Your banking relationships aren't so difficult. You can manage cash flow up to $2 or $3 million. When you get up to about $5 million a year in revenue, some things gradually start to change, mainly employee, liability, HR, insurance, and taxes. Those things become problems that weren't a problem for a $2 million business. Now, when you get to take the $5 million business to a $20 million business is a Herculean effort. It is just because a lot of your banking relationships start changing. You're going to have lines of credit. You're going to have things that are going to be tied back to inventory and AR and all of these things that you probably weren't really so much cared about when you're a $1 or $2 million business. But if you're an $8 million business, your banker does care, because you're going to have a $250,000 or $500,000 line of credit to get you through the lean times. That's going to be tied back to AR and inventory. And you've got to have software that can help you track those data points. Because once a quarter, when the banker comes to you and says, "Hey, I need you to send me your AR and inventory report," if it's going to take you a month to put it together, that's a red flag, right? You need to be able to hit a button and run an inventory report. You need to be able to hit a button and easily run an AR report. And most of those softwares at entry level can't do those types of things for you. Mm-hmm. So that's where, when you're getting up to that $5 million mark, there's really only again two players in that. Well, three. They're stocked up, I guess, is there. But Impress and Chalkworks, and they're archaic. Whether they're built on FileMaker, they're built on these kind of archaic systems. But if you walk up to most airline ticket terminals, it's still a black screen with green font, right? Because that's been proven the easiest and most efficient way to enter data. And so, we're challenged to get up there. I would like to see softwares, Printavos of the world, help us manage that AR and that inventory a little better. So that, and maybe it's there. Again, I'm speaking from ignorance here, but being able to keep track of inventory. In an ideal world where I'd like to see things go, and I don't know why no equipment supplier has done this. I mean, Bruce, if I was M&R or Rock, I'd have come and bought you 3 years ago. Why, to Danny's credit, which I think is what he was talking about, why is there no solution between equipment manufacturers and software manufacturers where they talk? And it doesn't have to be complicated. Why isn't that just a matter of walking up, and when you start a press, you're typing in a job number or typing in an invoice number that automatically communicates. Let's just use Printavo as an example. If it automatically pulled up that job from Printavo, and you could track the total production times. Just very simple data. Well, we don't have anybody talking to each other. And if I was an equipment company, I would have come and written you a check, a big check, because talk about getting a sticky customer. If I'm making an M&R press and I'm also selling a software solution, but that software solution is only going to talk to my M&R press, how sticky is that customer now as an M&R customer? 3 years from now, when he buys a second auto or fourth or fifth auto, every one of them are going to be M&R because the machine is talking to your software.
Mm-hmm. And I think no one's doing it because no one's doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like
we were talking about on the last podcast
podcast is you know, the first person that, like, the first company that does it will bring the market forward. And it's not a matter of can or cannot. It's, do they want to? Is there an urgency there? But I mean, I think in the next couple of years, something's going to have to happen. We're just getting to a point now where the excuses have lasted so long. And I say this in the nicest way possible, but I'm going on 8 years. And I remember having these conversations 8 years ago with Bruce,
20 years
with
ago.
Bruce at the trade shows or at both manufacturers. Like, hey, we could do this. Hey, we could, yeah. Like inviting, like it takes smart people to dedicate time to do this, but it's not unachievable. I just don't know if there's a desire, because does it sell more presses?
Prioritized.
It's
because it's not, to your point, it's not a competitive feature yet. It's not, because nobody else has it.
You know, I've always said, if there was an app on my phone called "Is my press running or not?"
.com,
yes or no,
.net,
and it told me the hours per day that it was just indexing, I would pay $10,000 for that, because I would know, okay, the press was spinning for 5 hours today. Okay, yesterday it was spinning for 3 hours. Okay, it was spinning for 6 hours. All I just want to know is my press spinning or not? And right now, today in 2022, you can't figure that out. And that's just backwards. I don't know. Jeffrey, what do you think?
We've got to get there, and I want to be sure we cover other topics. We always share a lot of information. But, you know, I guess it kind of goes back to Bruce's same challenge with, there's only so many hours in a day, there's only so many dollars in our research and development budget, and these press companies right now, they've got more business than they know what to do with.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
You call them. I mean, so, you know, why am I going to spend $5 to $10 million buying a company, or $5 to $10 million
on a bet when you know what's sure right now?
Yeah, when you know what's selling, and you're 6 months booked, right?
Yeah, I'm 6 months out. So I get it.
Jeffrey, in Asia, do the bigger factories mod and build add-ons to measure things with AI and that stuff, or is it still very manual process?
There are some bigger shops. There's some bigger shops, certainly. You know, my factories can absolutely do things better. But also the screen printing is just, it's a subcategory of the entire process. You know, whereas here in the US, we look at it as the process. In over there in our world, you're starting with middle with raw fabric, and you got to do cutting plans and sewing lines and trims and zippers and embroidery and transfers, and screen printing is a part of that entire process. And so the softwares that are used to manage things at that scale, I mean, you're in the SAPs of the world.
Oracles.
You're in the Fashion Max of the world. You're talking, you know, $10, $15, $20 million softwares with, you know, 100 people doing nothing but working on those things every day. They're so customizable that, yeah, you can absolutely build out a million different modules. And quite frankly, in a lot of the Asian factories, and certainly in some of mine, it's still paper Excel sheets on the floor. Because, you know, we have great workers there, but there's obviously, you know, the ability to train that many people at the floor level to work within a software system can be a challenge. So I would definitely start my shop with Printavo, you know, and they can get you where 95% of every business in the U.S. is going to be, and it's going to be less than $5 million.
Yeah.
Again, get up above that, you start having some requirements that are challenging. Just keeping track of royalties across different customers, sales rep commission,
Steven, royalties.
you know, UPC tags, name tags.
I mean, we're in the middle of trying to make a Herculean effort right now, and we have made a massive investment in technology. I mean, just Salesforce alone, there's easily like 40 grand in Salesforce, 30 or 40 grand in Salesforce. Just in that, you know, just to get, and we're still building it. And I think when you make that plunge, you never go back. When you decide to build something on your own, I love I could just build this. Then you need someone to maintain it and then bug it and then continue iterating on it. And it is a never ending thing, to the point where now we have one full-time engineer and then a contractor. And there's easily, probably 300 grand of engineering investment, and that's not going to return for a while. So it's not pretty. And I could see Bruce being like, oh boy, here he goes.
You got to do it. So The software will get there. There's other things I feel like our equipment companies can be doing, but look, at the end of the day, Ford, Chevy, and Dodge all make a good truck, and just drive the one that's going to get you where you want to. The last thing I'll say about equipment is I like doing business with people that I like.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay if people like different people than I like. Nothing wrong with that. What I'll say to that is that if you've got to be negative about your competition to sell your own product, what the hell are you hiding? I will not deal with any business that needs to beat down their competition to try and convince me to why their product is better.
Yeah,
when that starts,
it's just cheesy.
But
yeah, I mean, for sure, it's definitely cheesy.
Some of the main mistakes that I did, and we touched on this a little bit last time, trying to be everything to everybody, right? Trying to be the sign man.
When do you make that shift? You said over, what was it, 1 million you start to niche, or was it 3? What did you just say?
Over three. I said you can get to $1 million pretty easily.
Doing everything, and then you start to niche in over 3 into
a focus.
Yeah, and that helps grow to what?
Well, you can get you can get to 5 to 8. It's getting up above that where just you can be really profitable and just not have the cash flow or not have the financial acumen or not have the right people to get above that. That $8 million number, really the $5 million number, it's a really tough number to keep that kind of rocket ship going, even if you have a really good service and product. So I would say 5 million is that kind of, and then up above that, Bruce, you get to 20 or 30. Where other things start really changing.
It's interesting. The jump is like getting over that like 7 or 8 hump. And then like, it's not like you're stopping at 13, 14, 15. Running a $10 million company is the same as running a $18 million company. It's really interesting.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
The numbers get really big, but the percentages stay the same.
Yeah.
Right? And so it is. That's kind of the hump. The other things that I would encourage people to avoid, obviously trying to be everything to everybody. If I'm printing T-shirts, I don't need to figure out how to print coffee mugs. But the other things that you got to avoid is you got to try to avoid ego jobs. And what I mean by ego jobs is you're doing really good. You've got kind of your core customer base that's paying the bills. You've got a good system going, and then somebody like this is Bravado or the UFC calls you up and wants you to do 7,000 shirts for some event somewhere, and all you're thinking is UFC. And they come to you and they're like, well, we need it at this price. And it's like $3.50. But because your ego wants to be able to post about how you printed for the UFC, you take that ego job and it totally disrupts all of the other stuff that you were doing and doing well and making money on because you wanted to take that new job, that one job. Look, unless you are built to support those kinds of jobs, it's not like you convince yourself, if I do this one, I'm going to get this business, and I can start buying more equipment. And your ego starts overtaking common sense, and you end up disrupting your factory for a week to get that one job out that you ultimately didn't make any money on, and all you did was delay and piss off a lot of customers that are paying the bills. So ego jobs are something you've really got to be self-aware enough to avoid. The other thing you got to avoid are routing guides, right? The world of routing guides, which is what a big box retailer uses to accept product. And it's these 100-page thick manuals in the apparel world that, if Academy Sports or Dick's Sporting Goods call you up and want to order some product from you, you've got to get registered as a supplier. Then you've got to accept the routing guide. And the routing guide goes from everything to the hang tag's got to be on the left armpit, 2 centimeters over from that seam. It's got to be folded in a 3-ply in a 2 mil bag with a barcode on the bottom left corner, 1 inch from the left, 1 inch up from the right. It's got to be stacked in a 2-3-3-2 stack in a box. The UPS label's got to be on the front middle, no more than 1 inch from the bottom. And any of those things that you don't hit on the order is a chargeback, right? And so you think, oh my God, I want to do business with Dick's. They want my local stuff, but all you can understand is how much it costs to make that shirt. You never consider all of the finishing and routing guide requirements. People like Josh Merrill at Liquid, and other shops of that size, they have departments of people I think Josh has probably got 30 or 40 people that all they're doing is handling routing guides and labeling and boxes and packing lists and APIs. This goes back to that ego jump. Unless you have systems built
should just avoid
to
it.
support those types of customers, just tell them thanks, but no
Have
thanks.
you taken an ego job, Ferg?
All the time.
Salute.
All the time. I mean, we're doing it right now in sports, like, oh yeah, we work with this player, we work with this player, we work with this player, and we get agents that hit us up and be like, I got the coolest player for you. And I'm like, I don't care. Is he going to sell me 1,000 shirts or is he going to sell me 20 shirts? I don't care who he is, but you'll see it on our team being like, oh, can we give him a discount? It's just like,
that's it.
That's it. And you're like, I don't care if you're in the sorority, if you are in the church, if you, like I'll have clients be like, yeah, the band's coming around and they're going to be super legit. It's like, I don't care if you're in the band. I don't care. We're running a copy machine with t-shirts, So yeah, I'm growing past it. I still get excited about stuff when it's sports teams I like and celebrities and stuff like that all the time. That's okay. It's okay. It's an acquired skill to learn for sure, but I've been there.
Let's hit the one. We're kind of closing in here on our time here, so let's kind of circle back fully on something that Stephen mentioned earlier, and that is building out your supply chains. We all love going and buying new equipment. It's fun. We get to go to trade shows. We get wined and dined. That's all great. But what Stephen said earlier was, I want to build out my supply chains, build out my contract planners, build out my third-party people to help support the growth of my business. Because if I don't build that out now before I need them, it will be too late when I need them. And so, build out that robust network over there, and the people you can scale with. And as you begin to scale, then you can slowly get into the in-house manufacturing. And when shit goes wrong, because it will, you've got that supply chain network already built out to fall back on. The idea of, it costs $10 to get a customer and it costs $100 to get them back, right? So you can't afford to piss off your customers as you're getting into in-house production. So, finding the people that you trust, finding the people that can execute, and then building out your own internal systems to push orders to them. Do that first, and then figure out what you can do internally yourself and how much margin you're going to be able to capture by doing that internally. So Steven's absolutely doing it the right way.
And I think, we've gotten an investment. We're working with Mark Cuban. All the equipment manufacturers are hitting me up. Everyone's like, oh, are you going to flip your shop around, or what are you going to do? Or are you going to get the Polaris or whatever? It's like, nope. We have to get, and there's, I think I learned this too late in the industry. There's always a better printer than you. There's always someone that's much more talented. When you leverage them and we use their talents, and when, our industry is so elastic, it is such like an ecosystem that supports each other that, it pains me when I see someone on one of the groups saying, I printed a 4-color manual, 4-color front, 2-color back on your manual. It was 650 pieces. I'm like, your forearms, but like, did you know that our industry is very elastic? Did you know that there's a contract network? Did you know that there's amazing printers that'll print this for $1 or $2 a side and will do an amazing job so that you can get back to selling? Yep. And I think we think production comes first in our industry. Sales and marketing needs to come first, and there's enough presses in the United States to print for everyone.
When do you think that shift happened for you though? Because I feel like you were thinking about it differently from maybe 2 years ago. And then the last year I've made that more mind/business shift.
Bandwidth, like my mental bandwidth can only run so many parts of the business. I look at a company like Stoked On Printing in Vegas, and Sean and Kevin, like they each have an arm of it, production, sales, like it's they each can niche into it, right? I don't necessarily have that luxury. So, one part of my business is going to suffer when I'm focusing on the other one, and I don't have enough hours in the day to be automating the shop floor, and automating our sales and marketing and all that stuff. And so I kind of realized until we find that person or whatever, or we find that out, for me to sleep at night, it's okay to be elastic. It's okay to send, it's an ego punch to be like, oh, we're not printing this in house. Nope. And we're totally fine with it. I think I learned that I learned about the contract network when I was learning about DTG, because I would sub jobs out to Eric Withar at Premium Custom, and he was DTGing for me. And then I was like, wait, can you print for me? Wait, can you sew this for me? And I was like, wait a second, this works. And we do what we can in house, but when we're busy during peak season, we're subbing out 20, 30% of it, and that's okay. That's the decision we made so that we don't have to buy more presses and have more staff that I have to be responsible for 12 months a year, So
you were kind of like forced, like you had to, just through adoption, but.
Yeah. I mean, it was forced, but like, how did I learn about the contract network? I've been to freaking 18 trade shows, right? Like,
people, yeah.
And every time I go to another show, I meet someone else and I'm like, wait, we could work together. There's some cool stuff that you guys do. Right.
Yeah.
So I think we're very fortunate that we have a small community here.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So the last topic, equipment, software, supply chains. Fourth topic, pricing. You see come up all the time. Whether it's in the road printers groups or the Printavo groups or screen printing support groups, it's always, hey, I've got 300 shirts, 2-color front, 2-color back. I'm at $550. Is that good? Yes, it is. Great. Go. I don't know. That should be everybody's answer. I don't know. Because what I see people get most frustrated about is, oh, you're so cheap. Oh, you're giving it away. How do you know what that person's expectations are of his lifestyle? Right? I know what it costs me to live the lifestyle I want to live. And so that means if I was a screen printer, I would know what kind of margins I need to make. But that doesn't mean that everybody else needs that same lifestyle. Somebody else might be totally fine, still, living in their home that's paid for, printing out of their garage, and they print for 2 or 3 hours in the morning, then they have the rest of the day off. And if they make 50 cents a shirt, that pays all the bills that they need to pay to live the lifestyle they want to live. So to come in and saying that you're way too cheap, you should print more, you're giving it away. Maybe they are, but maybe they can be happy at that number. And maybe you need to make more to live the lifestyle you want to live, and that's okay too. And so all too often I see people just browbeating people. And of course, at the end of the day, for somebody to ask what somebody's pricing is, everybody's overhead's different, and that is valid. And so instead of just beating people up, just, you could kind of come in and look at it from a way of, look, I'd be at $8 a shirt. You're at $550, that's great. Good luck. And I promise you, capitalism will win out over the long term. And they'll either be in business a year from now or they won't be.
I think what needs to happen more, you said it quickly, Jeffrey, was people don't know their overhead. Even if you're a garage shop, do you know what your expenses are if you don't print a single shirt? And I don't think, like, if I were to ask people, how do we price? We price based on overhead. Is this contributing to the pot positively? Or are we losing money by printing it? And that's always the question. Is it contributing in a positive direction to where we want to be? And if we continue doing more of those and less of the detractors, we'll be a profitable business. But I don't think people really, people don't understand that. And I think I would challenge people to ask the question, what is your overhead? Do you know it?
Yeah, and what contributes to overhead, right? What's contributed to fixed costs versus indirect costs? And, how do we use both of those variables to ultimately price a job? It is complicated. Maybe this is something, and maybe there already is, but, there could be a whole hour presentation at these trade shows that should be very specific on, here's a template, take it with you, and this is how we're going to fill it out. And walk them through in that hour class. And, rent, electric, depreciation, taxes, all of these things. And I think there probably is. Our industry does a relatively good job of that. Maybe people don't realize where to find those resources. I don't know, but you're right. Most people don't have any idea. They just, the guy down the street charges $575, so I'm going to charge $570. And I'm either going to have some cash in the bank at the end of the month, or I won't. I have no idea. That's how
blind leading the blind. Yeah.
and the aversion to price increases. Why? How many industries you know out there that are so averse to passing on their cost to their customer? Again, it's an ego play. I don't want to lose that customer. It's your ego. And so our apparel suppliers have no problem sending out that email. Our ink suppliers have no problem sending out that email. Why do we, as the manufacturer, have a problem passing on those costs to our customer?
Mm-hmm.
That's something else that I think we, and myself included, I didn't do a good job of doing. So
what lifestyle? I like that, actually. What lifestyle do you want to live to target? And that's where you...
And judging somebody else because they're happy at a lifestyle that price pays for, man, that's pretty arrogant at the end of the day, right? It's pretty arrogant of me to think that his lifestyle is not good enough, so he should charge more for his t-shirt. Who am I to make that assumption? I don't know. Just my take on it. So those are the topics I always see coming up: equipment, software, supply chain.
This is going to be a
Love
good
it.
one.
Four
This is going to be good.
takeaways with Jeffrey Paul. Thanks, Jeff. We appreciate you joining again too. I'm sure you're.
Yeah,
what do you got a flight out to Singapore or Thailand?
Where are you going next?
It'll be Bangladesh. I'll leave on here on the 16th and probably be there for 3 weeks. We've got some big projects going on. Guys, thank you so much for your call. Thank you for what you're doing for the industry. If something like this had been around 20 years ago, I probably would have made half as many mistakes. So, thanks for doing what you guys do.
Yeah, thanks,
Jeffrey.
Jeff. You can find Jeffrey Paul on Facebook. He answers his messenger, so direct all questions there. Appreciate listening. We'll see you guys on the next episode.